Welcome to Buckets, coming to you from the Tommy John home studios. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Michael Fiddle. He's the Fiddle's Picks. That doesn't work. He's on Twitter and on the Action Network app at Fiddle's Picks. You can catch him every single day doing a breakdown of all of the sharp action in the morning. So a good process is listen to Buckets, get an idea of what the games are that we prefer, and then you can head on over to Fiddle's Twitter feed, and you're going to get an in-depth look at the market movement and how that has moved, the direction that has moved, the sharp angles on all that stuff. Check that out. You can follow him on Twitter at Fiddle's Picks. We're going to talk today. We'll give you best bets for Wednesday, February 26th in the association. And we're going to talk real quickly about this Luka Doncic Lakers game, which is currently unfolding. As we record this on Tuesday night, the Lakers are up 70-67. I need the Mavericks to get their offense in gear because I have their team total over in this one. I do have a very hyper complicated parlay I'm also trying to wedge in here because I like the overall model of it. I mostly wanted to ask you though, Fiddle, because you are our best guy for reading the market. I think our guys identify good prop numbers that are off when they first come out. I think our bettors are good at identifying spots. Jay's really great identifying like good spots to bet, and this feel I think is absolutely phenomenal. But you got the best read on like how numbers move, the awareness of how they moved overnight, over time. This game in particular, like we never get games like this in advance. We never get advance. We get opening night, Christmas, and that's it. We don't ever get games like this. I wish to God we got more of these because I want to be able to bet them. But I understand that the books are like, no, there's too many injuries and we don't know. It's too much risk and liability, which, yeah, you're suffering. It's a hard time for you. But my question for you, though, Fiddle, is this was such a public game. And I really struggled because anytime that a game is this public and this one-sided, like everybody was like, oh, Luka's gonna fucking kill him. Like Luka's gonna kill this team. And as we say this in the third quarter, midway through, he's got 16, 12, and 8. So he's on track for like a pretty good night. Like he may wind up with, like 25, 20 boards and 15 assists or something like that. That's a Jokic night. It's really good. With both the Luka props, which were so high, over-under was 31.5 for him on points for a guy with a minutes restriction, and the total got bumped up because they were just expecting this big thing. The spread went haywire on this game with an opener of 5, closed 9.5. I know that a lot of that's AD, but just when a market gets this out of hand, but it's also just like I didn't want to bet the Mavericks. And if you're like, why not? I'm like, because Luka's going to fucking kill them. Like, Luka's going to kill them. When you have a narrative this strong that everybody in the public knows, I mostly stayed away from this game. What's kind of your read on how to respond? Because in most spots where the numbers get this exaggerated, we want to go the other way.
Yes, definitely agree. Throughout the day, throughout the last 24 hours, the numbers were at a price where it was Mavs or nothing, under or nothing. And you talk about when this game was priced. Now, me, you, Brandon, and Joe did a podcast in the wake of the Luka Doncic news breaking. And did Shams actually get hacked, or is that real? Okay, it's real. Let's record a podcast. And in that episode, they started pricing the game for February 25th. And they're like, okay, let's throw up the odds. And they put it at 5 or whatever they did. When a market comes up that early, and that's what you spoke to, it's like rare that we get that. It's an evolution in the sports betting market. And now the trade deadline is such a nuanced storyline that will find the biggest trade and will price those games ahead of time as look ahead spots. Like you haven't had that in previous years. So it's definitely new. But when you're evaluating it from a market perspective, you have to realize that like if that market's new, like you're not getting serious heavy action down on a line 2 weeks in advance of an NBA game. The biggest bettors are not coming into that market because A, the limits aren't high enough, and B, like the risk assurances that you're running into between is someone going to get hurt, and specifically with this one, like Anthony Davis was hurt, Luka Doncic was hurt, right? Or AD was like coming back from an injury, and like there was so much uncertainty and so much unknown about the health of these players. it would have been really hard to like securely bet into it unless you were a public bettor just trying to get some action on a game. So you'd have to think all of that public action that was going to come on the game was likely going to go Lakers and over in this spot. Now, if you rely on models, if you rely on projecting, it's really all kind of trash with sample size that showed the Mavericks with Luka and then or with their bigs, and the Lakers really handed Luka Doncic the keys to the offense against Denver last time. So really anything from their sample size, offensively and defensively without AD, is like, what are these numbers going to say? But if you were going to model it out and sim it out, it would have said, obviously Mavs, obviously under. I felt under was the most actionable thing because if you're going to put the keys in Luka's hands and say, hey, it's fully your usage rate. Like, this is your game. This is your narrative. We're going to even set you up and give you a game early in Denver the other night. Like, I thought the way the Lakers played in Denver was not only, hey, we're going to start doing this now, but like, we know that this is coming for Luka and we want him to get a game under his belt of just driving this offense in full force. So there was going to be an adjustment period, and Luka's known for being a high efficiency player on offense. If you're talking like points per possession, but low possessions because he's a half-court player. He likes to set up. He likes to get into his spots. He's not like running and gunning the pace. So I thought this was a clear under spot because the number was going to be so inflated from the early market that it was no surprise that it got up to 233.5, at some point today and started crashing back down. And I think closed at 231 or 230.5 at some sharper books. So under was the late move, and I thought that was the clear sharpest side. Spread, total, prop, any sort of look in this game, it was an under spot.
Yeah, it's I think one of the things that's really tough in the NBA is betting night to night and I could make a list that's like 1,000 things long because it's just a really tough sport to bet night to night in the regular season. But one of the biggest things is the uncertainty of the conditions you're betting into, because in the NFL, you're basically the same team for most of the season. Like, some teams do evolve.
For two seasons over, Matt. You use priors that, like, you can't even use a prior in the NBA for anything. But you could go a season and a half back. Like, if you go Cowboys next season, you could use 2 seasons back, even with a new head coach.
Yeah, and you can't do that with the NBA at all. You just can't. Not only because the personnel scheme changes, like everything. Like, the Cavs are a radically different team than they were last year. They're just radically different. The Magic are largely the same. But when you're trying to build, and then you have a trade like this, the trade, where it's such a fundamental reshaping of absolutely everything. And with the Mavericks, it's impossible to really know like what they are. Like, one thing, I asked a couple of scouts about the Lakers and this like stretch that they've been on. And look, scouts are usually going to be pretty skeptical of everybody. Like, there's a couple of teams that they're just like, that team's awesome. I think they're so good. But for the most part, their job is to kind of pick apart teams and find weaknesses and strengths. And one of the things that they said was like, they're like, look, one of the things with the LA right now is nobody knows what this team is. Like, we don't have any tape on it. We've got no scouting report on them. They're an entirely new team. Everything's different. You take out Anthony Davis alone, and that's a massive change to them. You add Luka Doncic, it's an entirely different world. So, like, trying to get an idea of what this team was to be able to bet them appropriately in a game with this much attention, with this much extra motivation. Because motivation, I've always said, like, motivation is the biggest edge in NBA, even more so than rest. And this is such a massive advantage for the Lakers. They're at home with Luka, facing the Mavericks. It's the victory lap of the new era. They're up 3 points with 3:08 remaining. I'm sure that they'll win this game, but I think it is like a really big, and that's why we saw this number just get extrapolated out. I actually think it's more interesting to think about, like, okay, if this is 9.5, where are the books power rating this at full strength? Like, what does this look like if Anthony Davis and Derek Gafford, or if Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford are playing? How much of a move is this? Go ahead.
I think it's 5. I was just throwing up the 5. I would say Lakers -5 at home if you had Gafford, Lively, and AD all active. Maybe 4.5 even. There would be 100% sharp action on Dallas. 100 million %.
100 million. Yeah,
yep.
I very much agree with that.
Yeah.
I think this is actually kind of a good example of this. I mean, did you see anything that really kind of indicated that we saw sharp action on this game?
Yes,
Yeah.
I know for a fact, like behind the scenes, that there was a sharp move on under 232.5.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Makes sense. It's to me, it's telling that this number moved as much as it is and got bet up, and like there was so much attention on it, and the sharps left it alone from the side. That to me is like very much like, yeah, that tracks. That sounds right.
One thing that I talked about today on doing my show earlier, Matt, was like the constant battle when you reach the highest level of betting is timing things and saying, do I bet this for the maximum amount that I could bet it right now? Or if my edge is going to get 25% worse, but I can get down 6 to 8 times the amount of money on it, then do you want to forego it and not put that information into the market and lay a bet down and let it be known that that's what you want, right? So those kind of things, and the sharp people just wading in the waters. It's just like the longer that number stays where they want it, and the later it gets and closer to tip off, they are just spoon feeding themselves on that.
How do they test those things? Is a question I have. How do you test what a limit is? Like how do you, is it feel? Are you just like, I know when this number is going to be, when I can get a higher amount down?
Yeah, you have VIP reps, you have abilities to make. One thing that I've learned over the last few weeks is just the ability to get offers versus quotes. Like some people bet the line that's there, and some people send a trader, I want X amount of dollars on this line, would you give it to me? And they'll just say, yeah, sure. Yeah, you could have it up to this amount. Okay, give me it for boom. So yeah, sometimes it's not even the line that's on the board. You can make an offer when you get to a really high amount and you're betting these kind of limits.
Yeah, those VIP deals are entirely different. All right. Good discussion. We're going to do some best bets for Wednesday in the association. I want to let you know that we're going to be on NBA Bet Stream for tomorrow's game, so you should make sure to check that out. We're going to be on for Hawks and Heat. I will have a play on that game. You can find it in the League Pass app. Just go to that game and click under streams, and you can click on the NBA Bet Stream. It's me and our old friend Brendan Glasheen and Nick Fryer for DraftKings Sportsbook. It's a really good time. You should check it out. We'll talk about futures. It's a full game broadcast of sweating bets and talking futures and talking in-game bets. It's really good, and really, if you like buckets, you'll like the NBA Bet Streams. Check that out in the League Pass app for Hawks and Heat. I'm telling you to watch a Hawks game, which is how you know that's how good the content is. All right, we will do best bets now. I do want to let you know, though, however, you heard us talking about Tommy John earlier when we started the show, and so I do need to let you know that Tommy John is the absolute best underwear, best comfort wear in the universe. Great games start with great underwear, and Tommy John makes the greatest. It's hoodie season, obviously. It's still going to be hoodie season for a while, especially here in Colorado. And I need layers. I cannot just wear like a hoodie or a t-shirt and a hoodie. It's like undershirt, t-shirt, hoodie, because that's how Colorado rolls. And the Tommy John's t-shirt is the absolute best undershirt that you're going to find. It is so comfortable. It is so breathable. I put the thing on and I feel cozy. Also, they're like the pants, unbelievable to wear to bed. I am so comfortable wearing the Tommy John stuff to bed, and that's before we get into the comfort in your special areas with your underwear. It's absolutely phenomenal. Remember, when you're truly comfortable, you do everything better, and that includes betting. If you love the Buckets podcast and you love our crew, you'll love Tommy John. Get 25% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/buckets. That's 25% off. It's a great deal at TommyJohn.com/buckets. All right, as a reminder for our best bets, we do put all of our best bets in a quick slip in the episode description on youtube.com/the Action Network or wherever you get your podcasts. Just go down, click on those links. It's going to open up the slip right there for you if you want to tail us. So you can do that in the episode description if you like the caps on the games. Let's go around the horn. Michael Fiddle, what do you like on Wednesday in the association?
I have 4 of them because
look at
sadly we don't have Albert here. So I'll give out 2 on behalf of me, 2 on behalf of Albert. If you're wondering how to divide them up, wait for the results. The ones that lost are Albert's. The ones that won are mine. And they're going to be Portland Trailblazers -5.5, Boston Celtics -3.5, LA Clippers -8, and the Raptors and Pacers under 238.
Look at you giving out sides like a real bettor, as opposed to all of our good colleagues who make so much money betting props, and I hate all of them for being able
Money
to
is
do
the same green, same color.
I want the Toronto Raptors tomorrow, which is a very surprising result for me, versus the Indiana Pacers. You can get that at +9.5 on Toronto on the road. And I also want the Miami Heat laying 1.5 in a revenge spot versus the Atlanta Hawks. Let's start with Raptors Pacers and get that one because we both got to play on that one. Look, this spot's pretty simple. The Raptors are a pretty good team at home against the spread. They're on the road here, but this line I just think is way too much. It's -9.5. I make it 8.5. I got a full point of value on it. To me, that's enough to go ahead and get me into a position to want to bet this. Pacers coming off that loss to the Nuggets the other night. I did back them, so we'll see if I lose both angles of this. Always a fun one when I get down that road. But Raptors against the spread on the second night of a back-to-back are 2-2 this season, which is not bad at all, given where they've been at. They're 4-2 on the road. I'm sorry, 4-2 against the spread on the second night of a back-to-back. Pacers have actually really struggled with some of the scenarios at play here. There's a lot of trends that do wind up favoring Toronto. The Raptors are better in the first quarter than Indiana is, and when that's the case, the Raptors tend to cover a high percentage of these bets when the Raptors have a better quarter one performance than the opponent does on average. They're also just really good at being able to play teams like Indiana. I like the matchup with how the Raptors are playing right now. They've been surprisingly competent. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the number on the Toronto Raptors plus 9.5 versus the Indiana Pacers. You also have a play on this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll take the under. It's pretty correlated that I think there's going to be less scoring and that the road team would cover a essentially sub 10 double digit game and not lose by that many. I think the Raptors are honestly live to pull it off on a money line perspective. But I think this number falls to about 236.5, 236. There's also some asymmetric risk here for both of us, Matt, in that Tyrese Halliburton has popped up on the injury report with a groin strain. And so we will see if he's a go. But the numbers coming back down would suggest that this is definitely questionable. It's not the second night of a back-to-back. So he was listed with this injury in the middle of today, Tuesday. As we're recording this, he just popped up. Oh, he's going to be questionable for tomorrow's game. That's not the greatest sign for his availability. So if Tyrese is out, then this is going as low as, 233. But even with Halliburton in, I think this is very playable under 238 and closes up to 2 full points lower. The Raptors have really emphasized defense and slowed their pace in the last few weeks. So early in the season, they were just trying to run and blitz, and they weren't taking that many threes, but they were just lightning bolt in transition. They're really emphasizing their defense. They're playing well. They're well coached. So look for them to try and, tighten up on defense and then slow the game down offensively. So if that's the case, then I think this is a strong under spot.
I like that. Pacers are 3-6-1 ATS this season, just 33% when they're facing a team with a winning percentage under 45% as a home favorite. Indiana is one of those teams where their performance is pretty variable. It strikes all over the board. They're not a team that consistently handles bad teams. So I like the Raptors. Fiddle likes the under. Talk to me about the Los Angeles Clippers.
Clippers probably my favorite spot on the card. Now, this is just as much of a back the Clippers as it is fade the Bulls. I am going to be trying to fade the Bulls on early numbers, on opens so much. This team just traded Zach LaVine to drop the protections on their own pick. They literally said, the way that we gain value from trading our best player is by losing games this season. So let that be a loud message from what the organization just did. And you see it in their rotations, in their closing lineups, prioritizing the youth movement. On the other end, the Clippers, coming off of 2 losses in a row, go into Chicago on rest after games in Indiana and Detroit. So they did lose these 2 on the road, but really easy travel spot with those 2 games prior to being in Chicago with rest. Kawhi off the injury report altogether. So once he's officially deemed active, I think this is a consensus 8.5 with some even 9s popping up. So love the Clippers in this spot. I would say you could start to play it. People are going to hate this when I play a juiced money line, but if you're seeing it at 8.5 only, then you could split up your bet and play some of it on the spread and then some of it for insurance on the money line and split it up a half unit each way. And you're going to bring home less return, but that's a large number to lay on a road favorite. But this spot just screams Clippers.
I have a good trend for you. You ready for this one? This is a multi-team system. Okay, so this is not specific to the Clippers or Bulls. And my title for it is Home Dogs After a Super Blowout. So the Bulls absolutely annihilated the Philadelphia 76ers the other night. Since 2003, when the opponent is coming off of a 25-point victory or more, and you are the favorite on the road against them, you are 74-31 straight up at 71%, and 60-41-4, 59% against the spread. Over that many years and that many games, that's a pretty strong spot. This has all the recipe for disaster. Bulls off of like a feel good, just eradicated a sad Sixers team that's got no fight left in them. Clippers down bad, fading back to earth, need to get this win on the road trip. I like this play a lot. I can't get there on the number, but I like this play a lot from the spot perspective. It's a really good spot, Fiddle.
I like that trend a lot because I love the trends that are specific to where a game is priced. So to say doing X versus Y against the spread, and that's pulling in closing numbers, right? So it's saying, how did this perform against the sharpest market, and still says this is the side to back. So if you're looking at it by the time this game tips off and we're at Clippers -9, that's what's going to be graded into that stat, and you could even be a full point ahead of that market in addition to it. So I think this is a strong Clippers spot.
Clippers this season are also 16-11 against the spread versus teams that are an under 500 ATS team. So teams that cover less than half the time. The Clippers are taking care of business versus those squads at 59% against the spread. Lots of trend spots to suggest that this is a very good play. All right, let's talk about the Portland Trailblazers.
What's not to love about the mid-season job-saving Chauncey Billups? I'll see you next year with a new contract. Portland Trailblazers doing it on defense, doing it on offense too, doing it in the paint, doing it with the young guys on the perimeter. Watching Portland actually genuinely such a treat. So this game opened at 5. You now see 5.5 and 6 consensus across the market. I think this line is going to close at 6 or 6.5. And I think just blindly on that number, you play a -5.5. I make this game a 6.3 in a model, and looking at the numbers and the early market movement and the value of these spots and the way that these teams have been playing, the Wizards play by far the most rookies in the league. And now they're trying to bring in veterans of Marcus Smart and Middleton to try and keep that team afloat. But generally, you see the veterans keep the young guys afloat when they've played together for a bunch of time. So when it was Brogdon or Valanciunas or Kuzma, like the Wizards looked a little bit better in the month of January when those guys were being showcased to see who's going to take you at the trade deadline, Jonas, or who's going to come for you, Kuzma. This new version of Smart and Middleton, you don't really know what you're going to get. You don't really know how many minutes. They don't really have the cohesion with these young guys. They're learning the young guys and how to help them just as much as the young guys are trying to fit in and grow and develop themselves. So Wizards have played I think 1,500 more minutes of rookies on the court than any other team. It's staggering. The young guys in Portland are developing and looking really good. You can't say the same for Washington. Washington, the worst team, not only in the league, but probably in the last 5 years or so. So looking to fade them really whenever you can.
The Wizards have covered 8 of their last 10.
Have they?
Yeah.
Are those really long where they're 17? I was about to say the last point to that is when you could get the Wizards at home and have a little 4-point reduction like that. There's no home court advantage in Washington. People are showing up to watch the away team.
So lines are 2.5. They failed to cover the 14 versus the Magic. Covered 11.5, covered 13. No, that's not
The
11.
11.5 was versus San
Sorry.
Antonio. I remember
Yeah,
that
no, hang
painfully.
on. Yeah, they covered 5.5. They covered 10. They covered 11.5. They failed to cover 7 versus the Hawks, of course. They covered Cavaliers 17.5. 5.5 Nets. 4.5 Hornets. And 12 Wolves. I think that they might be in this spot. I often think about this. When you are a team that is this bad, it's hard to be as good as the Boston Celtics, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Oklahoma City Thunder have been for 6 months, let alone the Celtics are going on like 3 years of being this good. It's also real hard to be that bad for that long. Like, you will just accidentally get a little bit better. And the Wizards are almost guaranteed a top 4 pick, so they can actually afford a few of these. I don't want to bet them because they're the Wizards. I have a hard time just because my model keeps kicking back like, no, the Blazers are truly awful. And I'm like, no, like, they've been really competitive and they've been pretty good. And my model's like, no, they're hot garbage. And I'm like, I don't agree with you. I'll be very curious to see if this one pans out. I don't hate it just because Portland does seem like a team that's got more you just don't want to be that team, to quote Kyle Kuzma, right? At this point, it's you don't want to be that team. And a lot of teams don't want to be that team with the Wizards. The Nets, unfortunately for me, did because I took the Nets the other night. But yeah, interesting game. I'll be very curious to see how this one works out. I'm never going to blame you for fading the Wizards. It's the Wizards. Finally, the Boston Celtics taking on the Detroit Pistons. The red hot Detroit Pistons. Celtics are only laying 4 here on the road. That's impressive for Detroit just to get that amount of respect in the market. But you like Boston to handle business here.
Yeah, I'd say the red hot Boston Celtics as well, coming out of the break, finally looking like a team that can cover a spread, can cover a back-to-back spread, can cover a road spread, can cover versus a good team. The reason why it's at 3.5 or 4, and I would still play it at 4, is there's a lot of injury questions around this game. Drew Holiday missed the most recent game, and he's on the injury report. Al Horford missed tonight. Kristaps Porzingis was announced in the starting lineup, and then all of a sudden was a late scratch with an illness. So I was of the mindset that the 3.5 was priced as Porzingis was going to play on night 1, and then Al Horford would play on night 2, as we've seen them do a lot of times this season. And now with Porzingis actually missing the first one, I'd say there's a chance we see both of them tomorrow, which would be a nice boost to a Celtics ticket. So Jaylen Brown got a little dinged up, and we will see what happens with him. So a lot of questions in terms of the injury report. So before you bet this and when you go listen to the podcast, just check with, your local injury report or whatever your resource is. Go to Action. I'm sure we have that stuff there, and check on the injury updates and what's the most up-to-date information. But if we are getting these guys that shoot around, Derek White, Tatum, Horford are all likely going to play. But if you get Jaylen Brown or Porzingis, just one of the two, then I feel very confident that this line, balloons to about a 5. So I think the respect is partly because of how well guys like Malik Beasley are out here playing, guys like Cade Cunningham looking like he might be the starting point guard for Team USA in a few years. But a lot of this also has to do with the injury uncertainty of Boston. And for me on my end, I'm willing to play this low number because even if it goes against me, right? Let's say Porzingis doesn't play, Jaylen Brown doesn't go because Neemias Queta was playing late minutes over him because I think he got a little dinged up. I did not actually see it live, so I don't really want to speak to it. Maybe Drew Holiday remains out, and all of a sudden it's Celtics -1 at tip, and I'm in a tough spot holding a -3.5 or 4. I'm more willing to do that and play into the risk that's kind of against me in this spot when it's at a low number. If it was 7.5, 8, and I'm looking at a spot where the line might crash to 5, I'm way less apt to run this risk because you'll have more outs and more ability in a live game to say the Celtics probably get up 5 points at some point in this game and then are a 5.5 point favorite, and I could dump it off the other direction live and figure it how I want to. It's harder to make those requests when you're playing into like a 7.5 or 8 market. So I'll run the risk with the injury report now. But if you're betting this in the morning when you listen to it, just double check who's there at shoot around. And if you get these guys, really play it at any number below like 5.5.
I don't want to catch the falling knife. I'm too scared. I make this number. The Pistons are another team that my model is like, oh, they're not good. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like 5 games over 500. Like, they're really good. And my model's like, no. What if they were actually garbage? What if they were just absolute shit? And I'm like, I don't agree with you, number. So I should be on them. Also, the Pistons are 7-4 against the spread this season at home versus teams with a winning percentage over 60%. So, like, I can't even, if this was, hey, the Pistons are really good as long as they're not facing elite teams, I would get in on it, but they've just been good across the board. I just don't want to try and catch the falling knife. I think it's a pretty good spot and play with it being this low. I don't think this number is right. It's Celtics or nothing, but I'm going to go ahead and pass on by. You were a braver man than I. Very quickly, Miami Heat, this is not rocket science. They are 1.5 point favorites versus the Atlanta Hawks. They played horrible the other night. Second back to back. Just horrible. Offense couldn't do anything. Completely stuck in the mud. It was wretched. I think they're a better team. I make this game 2.5. So I got a point of value on it. Revenge spot. Spoelstra is about, in his career, he's about 59% against the spread in these revenge spots versus division opponents. So that to me is like a really good one. Is like, all right, familiar opponent at home, coming off of a loss, revenge spot. Spoelstra will take care of business. So I like the Heat here as well. Probably maybe do a little parlay. We'll get a little parlay going of Clippers. That's a big number. Clippers money line, Heat money line, Blazers money line. That'd be good. A little three-way favorite parlay. We'll throw that one in there as well. All right, that's going to do it for Buckets. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. Reminder that all of our bets can be found in the quick slips in the episode description. Michael Fiddle likes the Los Angeles Clippers, the Portland Trailblazers, the Boston Celtics, and the Raptors Pacers under. I like the Raptors plus 9.5 and the Miami Heat minus 1.5. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night for more best bets. Thanks for joining us. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, as well as Gifford Gold and Brady Rubino getting this up over at youtube.com/The Action Network. We'll see you tomorrow. Till then, let's get buckets.